But this showed me how sexual craving is no respecter of persons, for it can make attachments anywhere that there is the opportunity and the appropriate situation. When this sort of thing happens, my gross physical body is not apparent, and I feel no awareness of it. It is probably a Deva body that is known, seen, and felt by the Devas, and this is what arouses whatever it is in the heart of the Devata. This reaches the point where she makes a display of her love openly without any shame, which is worse than the way of good people who have a proper sense of shame. This kind of experience is often found amongst those who practice the way, but generally they are not ready to talk about it to other people, except to those who also practice the way, or to someone whose character they know well and can trust, or to one who has come across such things. Some of the bhikkhus who go far away into the hills are likely to be protected by a devata who keeps close by him, although nobody is able to see this. However, the bhikkhu who the devata has become associated with can know about it, but they make no ostentatious show to spoil it, like people in the world who have gross physical bodies, for they come with good intentions, faith, and respect, and with a genuine desire to do what is meritorious and virtuous for the bhikkhus. There are times when such a bhikkhu may fast for many days until his body becomes weak and exhausted, although his heart is still strong and bright. The devata, seeing this, feels sorry for him, and may want to give him some physical strength. So the devata asks permission to help him by giving him some deva food. This bhikkhu saw what he understood to be the deva food in the hand of the devata, which she had brought with her. It looked like an off-white chalky powder, and this, the devata told him, was the food of all classes of devas. The devata then asked if she could give him this food by rubbing it very lightly over his body so that the nutritive essence of this deva food should permeate all parts of the body very quickly and give it strength, like one gets from eating ordinary food, or more so. The bhikkhu felt that he should not give permission, for he was afraid that he may be breaking some of the rules of the Vinaya, because it was already late in the afternoon, and the devata was female, and she had come on her own, and if anyone should chance to see them, they would at least criticize him, even though it may not be a fault against the Vinaya. Even worse, they might think that she was a real person and blame him in the way of the world, saying that a bhikkhu and a woman were living together in a cave in the desolate hills, and there was no other man anywhere about to act as chaperone. The devata who has a deva body would then be taken for a woman who is making advances to a bhikkhu. The whole thing may get blown up into a scandal which may cause a lot of damage and trouble, even though in fact there would be nothing between them which was not proper and pure. With this reasoning he would not let the devata touch his body, not even to rub the deva food over him. But the devata was insistent, saying that no harm would come from the association with a devata at all, because the body of the devata is a deva body, and the food which she had brought to give him strength was deva food, and there is nothing in it which would contravene the Vinaya and cause him any trouble. As for seeing and hearing each other talking together, it is a case of the heart at the level of the devas, seeing a deva body, and the deva hearing, listening to deva sounds, and it has no connection with the gross physical body, physical seeing, and ears made of skin in any way that would be an obstacle to you and the Vinaya at all. The devata said that she had come to serve him and help him, in the hope of making merit and developing her virtue through this bhikkhu who was so resolute and intent on Dhamma, and that she had not come to harm him or Buddhism at all. "You should please have metta, and agree to let me have the share of the merit which I ought to get through you, and please do not reject this devata who is anxious to make merit, so as to be a condition for the promotion of my future births and becoming, and to cause my development and gain in the present and future to increase by this good action." The bhikkhu replied by saying, "While you are here with me, whether I shut my eyes or open them, I can still see you. Other people have eyes, and if they are not blind, they can also see us sitting here. What do you think? Would this be proper and in character for a woman, the two of us together like this? Please think well about it before doing anything. What you see here, you see with your heart and eyes which are supported by Dhamma. In other words, you have samadhi and jnana, which enable you to see easily and clearly," the devata explained. "Even though you may use your physical eyes to see me, the seeing still comes from the internal jnana, which helps them and enables you to see as if your physical eyes were seeing. Because it is just your internal eye which enables the physical eyes to see Deva forms, and if you did not have jnana within you to aid your seeing, you would never be able to see the Deva body of a Devata at all. In order to give you confidence that you have no need to be afraid of anyone coming and spying on this Devata who is sitting with you, I can give you complete assurance that apart from yourself alone, even if people came here in thousands, they would not be able to see me at all, not even one of them. I have the power to prevent the ordinary person from seeing me, and this is not difficult for me to do. The only exceptions are those who have Dhamma within them, and jnana which enables them to know, and for these people I have respect and reverence, and I have no ability to prevent them knowing. But also you should not think that this Devata is a supernatural being who has come from some mysterious place, for I have come from the realm of human beings who love the way of moral behavior, who love Dhamma, and who are always glad to make merit and make gifts of whatever is appropriate, and who have these qualities as their habitual nature. So whenever I come across anyone such as yourself who practices the way properly, I feel great faith and reverence, and want to increase it, and however much or little I develop, it is all merit and virtue and becomes part of my conditioned characteristics. You should therefore agree and help me with metta to do whatever is proper and right. I would not dare to do anything which is not allowable for a recluse, for good and bad arise from kamma, the actions which one does oneself, which I understand well and respect, and I do not go against. But what I have been pleading for you to accept is entirely within the realm of Dhamma. It is not a matter of Vinaya, and there is nothing of the way of the world in it. Like when you give Dhamma talks to us Devatas, it makes no difference as far as the Dhamma and Vinaya are concerned, whether there is only one person listening, or however many listen. The time when the Devata and the bhikkhu were talking to each other was the time when he was in samadhi practice, and not at any other time. But when he said to the Devata that when she came and sat there with him he could see her with his eyes closed or open, he was referring to other times in general when he was doing other things, and he was still able to see and know such things by means of his own special ability. Therefore, the reasoning which the Devata used in asking him to accept the Deva food was within the bounds of what is reasonable and proper, because it is limited entirely to the affairs of the heart, which is in samadhi meditation. Where the bhikkhu questioned the Devata, and they talked back and forth, all of this took place in samadhi and in accordance with Dhamma. But action done in the attained state of samadhi, samapatti, are not within the scope of faults against the Vinaya rules. It seems that while this bhikkhu was in samadhi that afternoon, the Devata in fact rubbed this Deva food over his body. But the body which the Devata rubbed was his body in samadhi, and not his ordinary body. When the Devata rubbed this food over him, he felt much lighter than normal in samadhi, and when he came out of samadhi, his body felt light and buoyant, and much stronger than usual, as if he had eaten food that day. The bhikkhu said that some days he was able to see the Devata all the time, without having to enter samadhi. But the seeing of Devatas in samadhi or with one's physical eyes at other times is always likely to be self-deception and false in someone who is just beginning to train themselves in the early stages of meditation. Therefore, even those who are naturally endowed with such abilities and may at times see various things must be cautioned by their acharya, who should insist that they do not let go and let the chitta go out and get to know things in the way that they have been used to doing this. They must wait until they have become sufficiently skilled at entering and leaving samadhi, and they understand what to do and how to react to the various things which are experienced, knowing well enough what is genuine and what is false. Then, when the time is appropriate to let go, they may do so to some extent, but not in the manner of letting go of all self-control and having no consideration for what is right and wrong, good and evil, which may become involved with this type of samadhi. Amongst those who practice meditation, there are some who see Devatas that come from their own delusions in this way, but if they are intent on Dhamma, not proud and conceited in this ability, nor believing it to be something special in them, and they do not deludedly go after these things which they experience, then it is not difficult to cure. But what is difficult is the type of person who tends to be haughty and boastful, As soon as he comes across any of the above phenomena, one fears that it will become a chronic disease, and he will not be the least interested in taking any medicine to effect a cure. Rather, he would try to spread the germs so that the disease becomes widespread, causing harm and loss to others who do not know nor understand about these things, nor about their tricky deceptions, and this disease is a type which one should be very much on guard against. I am not a knower or seer of the devatas, pretas, ghosts, and other such things, but if someone comes and talks about them in an effusive, extravagant manner, without any steering wheel and brakes to retain some control, I feel afraid and concerned, because generally speaking most people are susceptible to this disease, and as soon as the germs of it enter their system, there is fear that it would spread and increase and get out of hand. In order to combat this kind of disease effectively, one must ask the help of someone who is an acharya and who understands well about this sort of thing, as well as the way of samadhi and wisdom and other things also. If anyone goes to him and talks just a little about this sort of thing, he will know immediately whether it is genuine or false, and he can point this out clearly and cure the trouble straight away, provided that this person is interested to listen for the sake of learning the truth of Dhamma and its ways. Then he will be able to practice the way rightly, by following the acharya without losing anything at all. But what is frightening is the way that some people grab hold of anything that comes and passes by them, and then hold onto it as their valuable possession, absolutely genuine and true, without considering whether it is really true or false. This kind of true thing is then capable of causing endless disturbances and loss both to the person himself as well as others, and because of this, such true things are most frightening to those who have experienced them and gone beyond them. So those who practice the way should use mindfulness and wisdom to be well guarded against such things, and they must not let such true things as these be able to arise. This means that they will know all aspects of the way of practice with circumspection, and they will be a blessing to themselves and to the whole field of Buddhism. This bhikkhu who had the devata coming to look after him could tell the most fascinating stories, and I enjoyed listening to him. He talked of a time when he had gone for a period of meditation practice to a place where he was dependent on 2 or 3 families of farmers, and every 4 or 5 days he would go Paṭipadā to them, and he would eat 1 meal, and that was all. But it seems that his meditation practice became progressively deeper without any slackening. He did his meditation both in the day and at night with equally good results, but it was rather hot during the day, and at night it was cool and pleasant, and the citta was able to go down into complete absorption in the realm of samadhi, and to remain there for several hours at a time before rising out of it. If he thought with sympathy of the devatas, late at night he would withdraw from samadhi to some extent and look around. If he saw that some of them had come, he would receive them for a while. Then afterwards he would turn back towards samadhi again, as was his way, until the time came for him to withdraw from it. After that he would investigate and research with wisdom until he finished whatever he was investigating. The whole time spent in samadhi at night was 4 to 5 hours each time, whereas during the day it was from 2 to 4 hours, and in addition he would walk jankama after doing samadhi meditation. This was his regular routine, but he was not much interested in the amount of time which he spent, for the effort which he put into these various aspects of Dhamma was his chief concern. He said that whether he ate food or not, he did not feel hungry, although there were some mild reactions from the body, but not enough to bother him and cause trouble. When the devata talked about him being hungry, it was just her assumption. For himself, he had no concerns about being hungry, because he was absorbed in the Dhamma, which was in touch with his heart all the time, which was a more subtle nutrient than any other kind of food. This bhikkhu said that sometimes he could see the devata in the middle of the day sitting on a rock politely, watching him about 20 yards or more from him. Sometimes in the middle of the day, the devata would come up to him quite silently, as she did on the day when she came to ask permission to rub the deva food over his body. At times he could see the devata who had come to sit only about 4 yards away from him. He could see her quite clearly as if he were using his physical eyes. But when he opened his eyes, he could also see her just as clearly as when they were closed. At that time his citta was only slightly calmed down, and he should not have been able to see her. because the chitta which is going to receive guests from the Deva realms must normally be in a deeper state of calm than he was in then. Sometimes he felt strangely disorientated, and he had to ask the Devata, "Have you produced a gross bodily image, a nimitta, now, like a human body? For I can see you clearly, both with my heart's eye and with my physical eyes, in the way I see other things in the world." The Devata replied, "I can create a subtle body or a gross body without any difficulty at all. And this image that I see, is it a gross body or a subtle body?" "This image is a gross body." "Then what if someone else should come here and see you?" "I have made myself visible to you alone, as I told you earlier. You need not be afraid." But this conversation took place via the heart, and not at the level of ordinary speech. The Devatas are able to recall their actions of past lives, Pubbe Nivasa, in the same way as those bhikkhus who have the ability in this sort of thing. In this case, the Devata told this bhikkhu all sorts of things about her past and the things she had done. But regretfully we must pass over this, because I cannot remember all the things that happened. The above account has been included here so that the reader may think about how the citta, which has been continually taking on this or that form of body throughout endless past realms of existence and lives, never has any time when it can stop and rest from this, however it twists and turns about. But there are some people who deny this and say that death is the end and one is then annihilated. In one who believes this, annihilation, and the truth, which is that one is not annihilated, contradict each other in one and the same person. But who is it that has to accept the results of his past actions? And who is it that gets the truth which is unalterable, coming back on him, apart from the one who denied and the one who accepted the truth? There is nobody else to take on the results of each one's past, which are those of birth and death. For this is bound to be the destiny of beings in this world, each for itself. The happiness and suffering which each one has within the span of each life, between birth and death, is just the destiny of each one who is born and dies and who must accept it themselves. The words or the opinion which says death is annihilation or death leads to rebirth are not what will bear the result in place of oneself, so that one can take heart and feel easy about making these assertions without any thought of what in fact is the truth of the matter. The practice of training and developing the citta bhavana, is the way to get to know about oneself, and most especially to get to know about birth and death which are inherent in oneself. This is far better than any other methods for determining the truth of this matter, for other methods only tend to waste time without getting to the truth that convinces and makes one restrain one's heart from indulging in all sorts of wayward and playful thoughts which are pointless and cannot lead to the truth. The one that has to accept being born again after death is the heart, and conversely, the one that some say is annihilated after death is also the heart. This heart is the most recondite thing, and quite different from all other things, and this ought to be verified by the way of citta bhavana, which is the best way to enable one to see with certainty what in fact happens. In doing this, the important thing is to get the citta to go down deeper and deeper steadily until it reaches its original ground. Then one will be bound to know about oneself for sure, both about birth and about death, and also about not being born and not dying, all of which are to be found in the sphere of this same heart. As for being annihilated when one dies, this is not to be found anywhere within this heart which goes touring about. Nor in the Dhamma of the Lord is there any mention of annihilation upon death to be found in the heart. When one practices citta bhavana, one never comes across anything about the citta dying and being annihilated, for if one comes across anything at all, it is always and only about death being followed by birth. If the citta gets to know all about itself, it will come across no birth and no death within the citta, but never death and annihilation. Yet there is that within us which vigorously denies this, and it is not interested in searching for those causes which are there within each of us, and which are proclaiming themselves openly all the time. The important thing here is that if the heart, which is the leader, refuses to investigate the ways of those basic causes which it should get to know from itself, then even if thousands of people were to come and tell him the truth which they have known from their own experiences of having seen it for themselves, they would still have no way to make him accept what they say. Or at least, not so that he will accept the truth in a way that leads him to improve and correct himself so that he becomes a rational person who can take up and hold on to what will be of increasing value to him. In the end, he will probably become one who goes through birth and death time after time, defying himself, and not looking any further than his present situation. This is like a person who has a critical illness who is not interested in thinking about himself, so much about his room in the hospital, the medicine which he must take, the doctors and the nurses, and how they are no good and do not respond to his wishes, and he complains and moans and groans all the time, disturbing other people as well, even though none of what he does is any use at all. The account of the bhikkhu who was visited by a Devata and about his recollection of past lives has been told. The writer has also completed the discussion of life after death as against annihilation after death, and what has been written should be sufficient as a means of verification for those of us who still have doubts and uncertainty in regard to these two views which we should verify ourselves. Now we will go on to read of various other things.